Tonight, horror at a Saskatchewan high school. A teenage girl lit on fire, another taken into custody.
All of a sudden, the fire alarm just pulled off. Everyone left.
And the heartbreaking death of an Olympian after a callous crime by a man believed to be her ex.
She had a severe percentage of burns, which unfortunately led to multi-organ failure.
A key member of the Prime Minister's inner circle steps down. On the same day, the federal NDP leader speaks up about why he terminated his political pact with the Liberals.
When I know that means that an election is now more likely.
Home invasion caught on tape. Shocking video of the brazen break-in and armed attack. Plus, check in or miss out. Air Canada's new rules targeting tardy travelers.
Why tell us to come early and be on time, and if you're not on time?
And a cinematic tribute to a legendary Canadian band.
We had each other's backs, and I think you get that from this film.
Homegrown stars honored on the big screen as the red carpet rolls out for the country's flashiest film festival.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. There's supposed to be sanctuaries of learning across Canada, but a community in the prairies tonight is trying to make sense of a terrifying act in a high school just days after students returned to class. Saskatoon's Evan Hardy Collegiate is where police say a 15-year-old girl was lit on fire over the lunch hour today and transported to hospital with serious injuries. Another teenage girl, just 14, was taken into custody within seconds. Even police shocked by the gruesome assault.
The mood in our office right now is quite low. This is not something that we ever expected.
CTV's Alison Bamford starts us off with the chaos and the response.
Tense moments for students inside this Saskatoon high school on just the third day back to class.
All of a sudden, the fire alarm just pulled off. And I was surprised, obviously, and just left the school, Everyone left.
The building evacuated and classes canceled after a 15-year-old girl was set on fire during an assault at the school over the lunch hour, suffering serious injuries.
She was transported to Royal University Hospital, where she is presently being treated.
A teacher also taken to hospital. Police say he was injured while trying to put out the flames. The suspect, a 14-year-old girl, is now in custody. Police say a school resource officer already on scene for a different matter responded quickly in 30 seconds and had the student arrested in 60.
I believe that this situation could have been much worse and could have been more out of control if we hadn't have an officer there right away.
Classes remain canceled for Friday, but the school will be open to offer counseling supports for students. It's still unclear if the students knew each other. The investigation is now in the hands of Saskatoon's Serious Assault Unit, who will begin piecing together how and why this happened. But officers say that could take weeks. Omar?
Just devastating. All right, Alison, thank you. Another gruesome crime half a world away has ended in tragedy. A Ugandan Olympian based in Kenya has died after being set on fire by her ex-boyfriend. The horrific assault happening just weeks after she returned from the Games in Paris. CTV's Heather Wright on the disturbing trend of gender-based violence.
She was a mother, an Olympic marathon runner, and a victim, officials say, of gender-based violence. Rebecca Cheptegei was doused in gasoline and lit on fire on Sunday. Today, she died from her injuries.
She had a severe percentage of burns, which unfortunately led to multi-organ failure.
Authorities in Kenya, where the Ugandan marathon runner trained, say she was attacked by her boyfriend after returning home from church with her 2 children. She suffered burns to more than 75% of her body. Her heartbroken mother says her daughter was a good and polite child, while fellow runners paid tribute to her work ethic and called for change.
I hope there will be something to be done, because I don't know how many more lives that we need to lose so that they wake up.
Cheptegei is the 3rd prominent female athlete to be killed in Kenya in the last 3 years. Today, Uganda's chef de mission at the Paris Olympics said they were aware of issues with her boyfriend.
We never thought that it would become this tragic.
The World Health Organization has called gender-based violence a public health pandemic, with an estimated 38% of all murders of women committed by intimate partners. In Canada, a woman or girl is killed every 48 hours, according to advocacy groups.
We haven't yet taught ourselves as a society that this is simply not okay. There are still men who think, I'm going to do this. I can do this, regardless of the consequences to me later.
Cheptege's boyfriend was also injured in the attack and remains in hospital. Police continue to investigate, and today Kenya's sports minister vowed the government would ensure justice for the victim. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
Back here in Canada today, another political jolt for the federal Liberals. The party's national campaign director, who was supposed to oversee its next election campaign, revealed he is stepping down at the end of the month. Jeremy Broadhurst saying in a statement that the Prime Minister, the party and its candidates deserve someone who can bring more energy and devotion to the job than he can at this stage of his life, and that the physical, mental and emotional effort have taken a toll on his wife and children, but that he is still committed to the Liberal Party of Canada and to the Prime Minister. With more, let's get to CTV's chief political correspondent, Vashi Kapellos. And Vashi, Jeremy Broadhurst, a pivotal player on Justin Trudeau's team and a key member of his inner circle. Why come out with this news now, right after the Liberals suffered yesterday's political blow?
Well, I think, Omar, in this case, their hand was forced. The news of this started to leak. I first heard of it last night, and then it was initially reported this morning, and it kind of spiraled from there. What's interesting is that happened against the backdrop of this news being incredibly tightly held. Just 5 people, including the Prime Minister, I'm told, actually knew of it in advance of sort of news more widely spreading last night and into this morning. So that tells you something about how they wanted to control the narrative out of this. I don't think if they had their choice, it would come 24 hours after they suffered the first blow, which is Jagmeet Singh effectively ending their ability, their grasp, their hold on power as they've known it for the last 2.5 years.
Looking ahead to the next election, what does this do to the Liberal campaign strategy and finding a successor, especially since it appears there could be a chance of an election sooner rather than later?
Well, I don't know what the change will be that it prompts, but I know that it will prompt change. And the reason for that is the people whom I'm speaking with inside the Prime Minister's office about that big by-election loss in Toronto, St. Paul's at the beginning of the summer, they blame the way that the campaign was run, the lack of organization on the ground. Now, that's not just specifically to Jeremy Broadhurst, but it does include him. He's sticking around for the next 2 by-elections, which I think will be a proof point as far as their campaign strategy. But I expect wholesale change. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly even indicated that would be the case in advance of the big federal election. Omar?
All right, Vashi, thanks. The federal NDP leader said today a federal election is more likely now after he terminated that political pact with the Liberals. It's the first time Jagmeet Singh spoke since the surprising split. CTV's Mike LeCouture has more on what he said.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is already practicing his handshaking. After pulling out of the deal with the Liberals, he could be sending Canadians to the polls earlier than expected.
I know that means that an election is now more likely as a result. We are ready to fight an election whenever it happens.
Singh was unapologetic while explaining to reporters why he ended the 2-year deal, which saw some NDP priorities become government policy. The deal breaker for Singh was how the Liberals managed the rail dispute.
It was another concrete example of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals caving to corporate greed.
At a meeting of Liberals from Quebec, MPs said the deal with the NDP accomplished a lot, but they're focusing on the work ahead.
It's business as usual.
But it really isn't, because now Canadians could be sent to the polls if the government loses a vote in the House on a money bill or a motion of non-confidence. However, according to recent poll numbers, Canadians don't want that.
About 54% of Canadians are okay with the Liberals and the New Democrats working together to avoid an election.
The NDP's national director says it will be decided one vote at a time.
We'll look at each bill, each motion, each amendment on a case-by-case basis and make our decisions based on the merits of what's in front of us and the political situation at the time.
Some believe Singh pulled the plug on the deal to create some daylight between him and the Prime Minister, with by-elections more than a week away. Many Conservatives don't think it'll work.
Doesn't matter when the breakup happened, they still were married, and Mr. Poilievre's going to make sure that every single Canadian remembers it.
So now that the deal is done, you can expect the parties to ramp up the rhetoric against each other as we sit in this pre-election campaign state for the next weeks or months. Omar?
All right, Mike, thank you. A new push tonight for the urgent expansion of licensed daycare spaces across the country as government promises of $10 a day childcare fall short for many parents. CTV's Judy Trin has more on the persistent problems and recommended solutions.
Since arriving from Ukraine 8 months ago, these women have wanted to find work to support their families, but can't find a daycare to take their children.
It's hard to be all the time with kids, you know, and for they're the same. They need activities, they need a friend.
Since the federal government rolled out its plan for $10 a day childcare in 2022, demand has skyrocketed. A report by the Prosperity Project finds that there are 938,000 preschool children in licensed daycares. An additional 250,000 spaces are needed to meet the demand. Less than half have been created.
The focus needs to be on creating more spaces and hiring more educators.
But that's not easy to do. Little Heroes Daycare can take 80 children, but has nearly 400 families on its wait list. There's no room to expand in the building, and trained staff are in short supply.
Staffing, which is the most challenging thing in the market right now, is so hard to find.
To create spaces, advocates recommend extending parental leave for fathers, creating childcare centers in schools, and dropping the kindergarten age to 4 years old, allowing women to return to work sooner.
They're contributing their taxpayer dollars to the government. And at the Prosperity Project, we know that when women succeed, we all prosper.
The Prosperity Project worries that in the upcoming election, $10 a day childcare will become an issue. The Trudeau government currently spends more than $9 billion a year to subsidize the program. Advocates say the alternative of sending out family allowance checks would cost 3 times as much. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
Adoptive parents and agencies in Canada and around the world are in limbo tonight after China announced today it is no longer allowing foreign adoptions of its children.
I was surprised that they were choosing not to proceed with some of the adoptions that have been in process since before COVID.
China suspended international adoptions during the pandemic, but this outright ban has many families seeking clarification. The only exception will be for blood relatives adopting a child or a stepchild. Police have released frightening video of a brazen home invasion near Toronto. The video shows 4 suspects in black hoodies breaking into a home in Markham. One of them can be seen turning the lights on and off, another carrying a gun. The armed suspect picks something up off the table and throws it to the ground. Police say there were 3 adults and a child in the house at the time, and that the suspects demanded cash before fleeing in a red SUV. One of the leaders of a notorious ring of Canadian art forgers is going to prison. David Voss has been sentenced to 5 years for duping unsuspecting collectors into buying works they believed came from the brush of trailblazing Indigenous artist Norval Morrisseau. More than 1,000 fakes distributed from 1996 to 2019. The executive director of Morrisseau's estate described the crime as the largest cultural appropriation event in modern history. At least one province is defying Health Canada's order to destroy current supplies of last year's COVID-19 vaccines. British Columbia says they will remain available until the new vaccines are approved and available. But several other provinces are following through with the directive. CTV's Rachel Crow-Spreading Wings reports.
Across the country, Health Canada has asked provinces to dispose of old COVID vaccines. Experts say that's not a reason to worry.
We don't, for the most part, use the same flu vaccine formulation every year. And that's because there's surveillance programs that are in place. They tell you what the current or what the anticipated strains will be. They create an updated formulation. That formulation gets distributed.
Ontario, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Quebec say they're following the directive to throw out the vaccines aimed at Omicron variant XBB 1.5 variant. Pharmacies across the country are also getting rid of the vaccine.
I think we had probably about 4 or 5 bottles that we had to get rid of. The interest is not that great anymore. I think people may be tired of it, and also there's not too much information out there to encourage people to take more shots.
But BC says the old vaccine will remain available until the new one is approved by Health Canada in the next couple of weeks.
You would want and hope and expect the government to be a little bit more coordinated in making sure the new doses have arrived before they've gotten rid of the old doses.
While provincial and federal governments have largely scaled down their surveillance on the spread of COVID-19, but the national wastewater sampling suggests the virus remains active throughout the country. Still, people are encouraged to stay home if sick and test for COVID, with the risk of increased transmission this fall before a new shot is available. Rachel Crow, Spreading Wings, CTV News, Calgary.
Coming up, frustrated flyers.
Why tell us to come early and be on time, and if you're not on time?
Air Canada's new check-in rules. Plus, the stars are out in Toronto. Canada's largest airline has brought in new rules for how early passengers need to check in before their flights take off. A change some flyers are learning about the hard way. CTV's Sarah Plowman on why Air Canada is making the change now.
Travelers have a new rule to navigate. Air Canada passengers have to check in an hour before a domestic flight instead of 45 minutes. New as of yesterday. Dakota Clark arrived 45 minutes before her flight, but it was too late.
It's kind of frustrating because I have work tomorrow that I'm not going to, and I had appointments to go to.
Air Canada says this change ensures a smoother, more efficient boarding and baggage loading process and gives everyone peace of mind in preparation for takeoff. The exception to the new rule is the Billy Bishop Toronto City Airport, where check-in is cut off at 30 minutes before. This passenger, who likes to be early for his flights, isn't bothered by the change.
The bad thing that when I arrived here, I knew that the flight has been delayed for 1 hour.
That 1 hour delay became a 4-hour delay.
Why tell us to come early and be on time, and if you're not on time?
One aviation expert says Air Canada is trying to find ways to improve its on-time performance, something it ranked last in North America for among large airlines last year.
I think Air Canada's problems are bigger than just check-in times. They've got some major issues with the mechanical state of their fleet.
He calls the Canada-wide rule overkill, while others are on board with it.
I think overall the changes are mostly positive. It streamlines everything and makes everything clear.
The airline points out people can check in 24 hours in advance online. People wanting to do it in person should arrive early in case there's a line. And anyone dropping off baggage has to do it 45 minutes before their flight. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
And a big change in Ontario when it comes to selling alcohol. Corner stores now have licenses to sell beer, wine, and cocktail mixes.
The LCBO is not always open, so it's convenient. Convenience store, right?
Hopefully it doesn't lead to anything negative for someone's life if it's too accessible.
All the same rules still apply to age and ID requirements, and sales are allowed between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m., with more than 4,000 convenience stores granted licenses. Still ahead, another golden day in Paris. Team Canada adds to its impressive medal haul at the Paralympic Games. There were more medals today for Team Canada at the Paralympic Games in Paris. Swimmer Aurélie Rivard of Quebec won her third consecutive Paralympic gold medal for the 400-meter freestyle event. Tess Routliffe from Ontario won her second medal in the pool, a bronze, in the women's 100-meter breaststroke. And wheelchair racer Brent Lakatos from Quebec sped to his second gold medal. Ticketmaster's pricing for Oasis tickets is under investigation in the UK. Some fans are looking back in anger after spending hours Saturday in online queues for tickets to next year's reunion concerts, many paying more than double the face value because of Ticketmaster's so-called dynamic pricing. That's where prices can vary rapidly depending on changing market conditions. A competition regulator is looking into whether Ticketmaster violated consumer protection law. After the break. The Tragically Hip and their fans kick off TIFF on a high note. The Toronto International Film Festival opened with a touching tribute to one of Canada's favorite bands. A new docuseries on the Tragically Hip made its premiere nearly 7 years since the death of lead singer Gord Downie. With more, here's CTV's Adrian Gabriel on the red carpet.
The bright lights are once again shining as opening day of Canada's most prestigious film festival takes center stage. Movie buffs, music lovers, and celebrity gawkers arrive by the thousands along Toronto's King Street West. Following the pandemic and the Hollywood writers' strike, the Toronto International Film Festival has returned, with a slate of A-listers set to touch down over the next 10 days.
And the festival's opening day red carpet had a truly Canadian touch today with the world premiere of the documentary, The Tragically Hip, No Dress Rehearsal.
Crowds would get so loud that you couldn't hear anything happening on stage.
They put on a monster show.
The docu-series follows the band from their humble start in Kingston, Ontario, as they wove their music and lyrics into the fabric of Canadian culture, ending in heartbreak with the passing of frontman Gord Downie.
This is a story that, from our very beginning in Kingston, needed to be told our way.
Putting the documentary together was a journey for you and the band.
Yeah, it's just to dredge up everything, right?
Though the emotion of the day didn't stop the band from taking to the streets to join hundreds who came to honor them by singing some of the Hip's most iconic songs in the open air, with a little help from Canadian duo Choir, Choir, Choir.
You are ahead by a century. You are ahead by a century.
With the Tragically Hip and even some of their children taking part, the harmony of this moment wasn't lost among their faithful followers.
Being a Canadian and being a part of this right now feels very special.
Nostalgia and exactly how it used to be right now, in the present moment. About 9:15.
And for one night in Toronto, the Hip and their fans took over TIFF. With grace, too. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, Toronto.
What an absolutely beautiful moment. That's a snapshot of this Thursday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching, and good night.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.